I've created a city in cyberspace that's 276 blocks wide, 276 blocks high, 276 blocks deep. You're buying 1/21 millionth of all the money that there's ever going to be in cyberspace. And one day, the 8 billion people are going to want to put some of their money there. And it's the most simple idea imaginable. Do you want to buy 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world for all of eternity? Like the product's going to be the same in 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. So think of it like, buying Manhattan in 1750 and you're 100 years late. And someone goes, you're 100 years late. The guy that's selling you the building paid less than you're going to pay. Aren't you afraid you're overpaying? And it's like, well, I'm going to dump it to a guy in 1770 for more. And that's stupid because you should buy it every year from 1650 to today. And it's the greatest city in America. So why wouldn't you want to own 67 blocks of Manhattan? Just like why wouldn't you own 67 blocks of Bitcoin? So you're never going to be too late if you understand that the future digital economy is going to be built on top of 21 million blocks of Bitcoin.
I remember in 2016 when I released this video and it was fluctuating between 4 and 15,000. I found an old tweet I did and it was at 14,000. And people were saying, oh, Ty, you're getting people slaughtered. They're buying at the top. And I said, if you believe in something, the reason you believe in it is because you believe there's no top. So, I said about 8 years ago, I said, my guess, I don't know if you remember when John McAfee made a bet. I think he said, if Bitcoin's not at 1 million by 2020, I'm going to cut my penis off. I told all my friends, never bet a body part on anything. But I said, I think it'll be at 250 grand by 2025, 2026. Part of the reason is the old hands have to flush out. I know people that got Bitcoin at $300, $1,000. As the rise comes to 100 grand, which it recently hit, it just becomes such a big temptation. The old hands flush, push the price back down. But inevitably, now you have a new hand of buyers that bought in at 100. They're not going to sell till it hits 200. So this kind of seesawing, do you think, because I feel like among smart people, the seesawing is the number one thing that people argue against Bitcoin. So I had a friend here in finance. He says, Ty, I see where you're going with Bitcoin. The reason I don't consider it as a currency is the currencies we trust in the world, they don't seesaw very much. The dollar is pegged somewhat. Now with Joe Biden, it changed. But what's your counter argument to people say, yeah, Bitcoin's good, but it's too speculative. It moves in 1 year from 15,000 to 100,000. What's your counter?
I think the important thing is to understand it not as a digital currency, but as digital capital. Money decomposes into currency, which is the medium of exchange, like the peso, the ruble, or the dollar, or capital, which is a store of value, like a Monet painting, like a really nice penthouse in Manhattan, like a bar of gold, or like a Bitcoin.
The steadfast Bitcoin advocate and co-founder of MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, celebrates his 60th birthday with some cryptic messaging and some teases for what's to come in regards to Bitcoin. Key industry titans and enthusiasts maintain a fixed gaze, eager to see where this Bitcoin-centric strategy steers the financial ship next. Welcome back to Investocracy Crypto.
And so if you think of it as currency, you get really confused because you want to buy coffee with it. But the truth is, no currencies are good stores of value. You wouldn't want to hold $1 million of dollars or pesos or marks or francs or yen or anything for 100 years.
Right.
But, if you go and you ask the question, what did it cost for an acre of land in Manhattan in 1900? What did it cost for an acre of land in Palm Beach in 1900? I live in Miami Beach. The land that my house is on was $10,000 an acre in 1930. Now it's $20 million an acre.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you ask the question, what did your Monet cost in 1930 and what does it cost today? The point really is the people that bought Palm Beach or Hampton's real estate or Monet's or they want to buy Bitcoin. Those are not speculators. It's not a 4-year. If you bought a Monet in 1913, and if you had to sell it in 1916 in the middle of World War I mean, maybe you sold it at a loss, but you're an idiot, right? Because 100 years later, it's going to be worth somewhere in the range of 100 to 1,000 times more money. So you should think of it as scarce, desirable property, something that a government can't make more of. I mean, the reason that Palm Beach real estate is valuable is because the government can't make more beachfront in Palm Beach, and they can't. The reason that dead artists are more valuable than live artists is you don't want the artist to make any more paintings. You want the Vermeer to stop painting. You want Da Vinci to stop painting. So you need a cap. It needs to be something which is scarce. It needs to be desirable. And Bitcoin happens to be the most desirable global capital asset. People are buying it because the alternative is to buy a building in Africa, or to buy a bunch of land in Siberia, or to haul a bunch of gold bars, in their car across a border, or to worry about someone spilling coffee on their Van Gogh. It's like once you see it like that, you're like, okay, I kind of like the idea that I can hold $1 million worth of value on my phone, and I don't have to worry about someone spilling coffee on it. And if I needed to send it from here to Tokyo on Saturday afternoon in half an hour, I could do it. That's the way to think of Bitcoin.
So on that note, that now you have this capital store, on a practical basis, for my friends that are new to the game, do you recommend that they buy Bitcoin on a centralized exchange, a Coinbase, a crypto.com, a Binance? Or are you a big fan of you have your own wallet, it's a device, you own it, you maybe put it in a safe deposit box, or you control it? A lot of people say, it ain't yours if you don't control the keys. What's your thought?
I think there are 3 reasonable ways to acquire Bitcoin. And the right way depends upon who you are, what stage of life you're in, where you live. Also, whether you're acquiring it for yourself, your family, or your company, or your government, or institution. And so if you're an institutional investor and you're acquiring it for your charity or your city or your government or your company, and you just want the economic exposure, you might just buy the spot ETF. And there are spot ETFs like IBIT from BlackRock or FBTC. And every country in the world, right? There are ETFs in Europe, and there are ETFs in Brazil, and there are ETFs in Germany and Australia and the like. And for some people, what they should hold is they should hold Bitcoin wrapped as a security. Now if you're a senior citizen and you just kind of want it in your retirement account or something, and you want to be invested 2% in it or 3% in it, in that particular case, that might also make sense, because you just pick up the phone, call your broker and say, just buy me a bunch of this thing. And you put the phone down after 10 seconds and it's done.
A glimmer of redemption surfaced in 2020 when Saylor unveiled a bold strategy, converting corporate cash into Bitcoin, thereby revolutionizing MicroStrategy's balance sheet. He may not have a crystal ball, but he sure does have the blockchain. This Bitcoin odyssey has been anything but serene. MicroStrategy has embraced selling corporate debt in senior convertible notes to fund these purchases, a move echoing with both risk and reward.
Yeah, I think I've always said it's either something or it's nothing. If it's embraced as an institutional asset, if it's legitimized as an asset, then it's not going to zero. And if it's not going to zero, it's going to 1 million. And I think the short answer to your question is education, and with education comes adoption. And at this point, you just have 95% of the world that still doesn't quite understand what it is. And that means, the way Bitcoin marches from 100,000 to 13 million, and by that's for your listeners, You're referring to my long-term forecast. I gave that forecast in Nashville in July of this year, and it's based upon the Bitcoin 24 model. So the Bitcoin 24 model is an open source macro model of Bitcoin adoption and macroeconomic development over the next 21 years. Anybody can go to Google and they can Google Bitcoin 24. They'll find it on GitHub. You can download that model. You can plug in all your own assumptions and you can check what we thought. But my forecast is Bitcoin, in essence, it's growing 60% a year for quite a while now. And I'm forecasting it will decelerate to 20% a year over 21 years. But that means on average, it grows about 29% a year, ARR. And that 29% a year for 21 years gets you to 13 million a coin. And so what do I expect to happen? Well, I expect lots of high net worth individuals that previously thought it's too risky or it's too scary. They see it legitimized by BlackRock. Now, BlackRock is giving guidance that you could have 2% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. And they're seeing the ETFs like IBIT. And they're noticing that these are the most successful ETFs in the history of the world. And BlackRock has got the most successful ETF ever launched. And now they're seeing the world's largest money manager, BlackRock, with more than $11 trillion of money managed. They're seeing them publish scholarly, thoughtful, responsible white papers on portfolio allocation. And instead of the 60-40 model with 60% equity and 40% bonds, now you've got 2% that they're saying you might want to put into a crypto asset like Bitcoin. So I think that you've got that group of people that are finding it. I also think you've got institutional investors that are moving into Bitcoin more frequently now. A lot of them are big investors in MicroStrategy. A lot of them trade MicroStrategy options. MicroStrategy has been the most successful stock in the S&P index. We're not in the S&P, but we're more successful than all 500 S&P companies for the past 4 years. I think this year too.
Presently, the company stands with 471,107 bitcoins, valued at staggering sums, despite the cryptocurrency's volatility that recently nudged Bitcoin below the $100,000 benchmark. Forbes conscientiously reports Saylor's personal cash at 17,732 bitcoins, reflecting a substantial fortune aligned with MicroStrategy's financial performance. In 2025, Saylor commands a net worth of $8.8 billion. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Okay, how do you sell them? If you're talking to me on the phone, I'm like, Michael, you want me to do what?
You mean my customers or my investors?
Customers.
Yeah, well, the customers of the software company, they're getting MicroStrategy software. They're delighted with the software.
Let me rephrase that. Investors.
Investors.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the investors are investing in the company because they want more Bitcoin. They don't want Bitcoin performance. They want to invest in a stock that can outperform Bitcoin. So we are a Bitcoin treasury company. And the way to think about us is if you just want straight Bitcoin exposure, you buy IBIT from BlackRock. And that's like overnight deposits. I'm buying, $1 million of Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin goes up 50% a year, I'm getting 50% a year, and I'm getting the downside and the upside. MicroStrategy will sell you bonds. We're basically the leading issuer of Bitcoin-backed bonds in the market. So what if you wanted the upside of Bitcoin without the downside? I want like 75% of the upside, but no downside, or something like that. You buy the convertible bond. And so a lot of investors of ours are bond holders, and what they want is low risk, low volatility Bitcoin. And you can do that through those fixed income instruments.
The robust state of MicroStrategy stock, fueled by Bitcoin's unpredictable dance, sends a signal brimming with opportunity. Predictive analysis and market forecasters provide mixed yet promising insights of substantial growth for both Bitcoin and MSTR stocks. But what do you think? Share your thoughts. And finally, if you would like to know more about cryptocurrencies or specifically Bitcoin, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.